Guys, good Wednesday morning. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk with Keith Smith. Thank you kindly for joining us. This show presented by Ross Mortgage, Scott Morris, and the team at Ross Mortgage, a presenting sponsor of the Wednesday edition of Real Talk with Keith Smith here on the I Love CVille Network. In today's show, we are going to bring consistency, sensibility, common sense, and as Taylor said, clarity to you, the viewer and listeners. I am seeing the DMs coming left and right on the OPEC, the cut of production here and how it's going to impact the market. We talked before
in our
the show.
Pre-production meeting.
We're starting to get a really, really good feel after, 3.5 years of Real Talk with Keith Smith of where the conversation's going to go. Keith has created come up with a good brand for this show where we adapt to the viewers and listeners. He's called it Dealer's Choice. So you, the listener and viewer, are the dealer, and you choose the topics that we discussed today. We are well-read, and we're ready to inform and offer perspective from the street. Perspective from the street. Judah Wickhauer is our director. We give props to the North Star of our network, Judah Wickhauer, J-Dubs, as he's known from Virginia Beach to Northern Virginia and across the Mid-Atlantic. Why don't we go to the four-shot and let's welcome our panel of experts. You know the distinguished gentlemen. We love having them here. You know the talented Scott Morris. We love having him here. That shirt is on point. Gentlemen, I don't know about you guys, but this guy over here is making us feel, oh my God.
He wins.
Dressed like a freaking model over here.
He wins.
Taylor Averitte. Am I wrong there, Scott? The man's flossing here.
First thing I thought when I saw it, I was like walking into a sharp-dressed crew. Maybe I should have made better choices today.
Well, we're both Marines. What is being a Marine? 99% perception, 1% reality,
True,
right?
which also, being a Marine, gets to tell myself every day you should make better choices.
Scotty Morris, I love it. Scotty Morris.
Oh, come on now.
Johnny Ornelas said, gentlemen, I'm working on that right now at El Mariachi, streaming the show in the restaurant.
Love it.
As we speak.
Johnny, a belated happy birthday. I wished you happy birthday on Facebook, but I wanted to do it now. Happy birthday.
We love you guys. El Mariachi in Guadalajara. All right, Judah Wickhauer, let's go to a one-shot on Taylor. The show is yours, my friend. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, introduce yourself to everybody that's watching.
Hey, everybody. My name's Taylor Averitte. I'm a real estate agent with Nest Realty and an undercover Tar Heel in Charlottesville.
I love it. North Carolina Tar Heel. I'll tell you what, you guys, how's the football team looking this year? Certainly better than the Wahoos.
I think our defense is pretty trash, but our quarterback is slinging.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, he's good.
He's throwing ropes. Gentlemen, the questions are coming in fast and furious. Scotty Moe, we'll start with you, my friend. Anywhere you want to go on the Wednesday edition of Real Talk with Keith Smith, the show is yours.
So, anywhere I want to go. To the theme that I've been trying to stick to, the U.S. 10-year made it up to it hit 4% in the last 8 days. Now, what else has happened is it's come all the way back down to $35.99. I think we're trading somewhere around 3.7 today. Off the top of my head, which is a 16 basis point increase from kind of the run of good days that we had. I think right now is a very important time to trust that your mortgage advisor is knowledgeable of kind of what the market is doing when it comes to locking your rate. The big swings that we've seen, I had a friend of mine who had new construction. He's getting ready to turn it into a permanent loan. And 2 months ago, I was like, dude, we need to start having this, like, I can lock you at 6 months. Like, let's talk about this. And he put off right to the day before last Wednesday before we saw a 25 base, when we pushed up near 4% in the U.S. 10-year. At that point, I was like, dude, just pump the brakes. Anything that goes up this fast is going to come back down, and it did. What I'm getting to is I think we're near what the market thinks should be as a peak. This started with Australia, with them only increasing 25 basis points. The UN sending a message to the U.S. saying that your rate increases are strengthening the dollar so much that it's going to cause third world countries to collapse. We are at a point where they may continue to rise the prime rate, but there's going to be more incentive for the government to step in and protect the housing market, whether that's going back into some bond buying or mortgage-backed securities. But they're going to act before they actually signal on this, because taking that hawkish stance is what's going to keep driving their message towards the inflation without having to back away from it. But they see that there are problems that are being created in the process. So with gas and with the reduction that OPEC is making, they see the worldwide recession as well and don't want to be stuck with a glut of product. So short term, yes, I think gas prices are going to be a huge pain point. But long term, when it comes to how this is actually going to affect you being able to buy a home, I think these are actually good things.
That's the first sizzle reel right there for Scotty Morris. Keith Smith, we're going to get you to jump in. Taylor, we're going to get you to jump in. We got commentary coming in from the street. Michael Buchensky of First Heritage agrees with you. Here's what he says.
I love that dude. If that dude's agreeing with me, I'm on the right track.
Coach Buchensky, he says Barry Habib, who is well-known mortgage guru, thinks we will see a turnaround in January 2023 with free refinance opportunities. So we would assume rates would drop by then, and all of the 6% and above rate mortgage holders will have a chance for some relief. Barry expects a recession later this year or early 2023, and as such, expects mortgage rates in particular to drop precipitously from their current rates, along with all rates of other asset types. A message you've been consistent about this entire show.
I think Barry Habib's a little ahead of the curve. I think we might get some, we'll like air quote reliefs and like say that we'll get closer to, we'll still be quoting in the low sixes, mid fives, probably, if we're going to call that relief. I think that the fives is still probably a little ambitious. Through then, I mean, Barry's a guru, and I'm just Scott Morris. But
marvelous.
I will say that I think it takes. I've been calling first quarter next year. I'm sorry, beginning of second quarter next year. I'm gonna stick to that.
Okay, Keith Smith, jump in here. Then Taylor, your first take after Keith.
So I'll tell you what, I'm going to defer to Taylor here because I come from this with the lens of age, right, and the lens of 3.5 decades. But for somebody,
the hidden Tar Heel is like. Tar Heel graduate UVA Com School. This is who we want to be.
Don't set me up for failure, Scott.
So thank you for stealing my thunder, because that's where I was going with that. I always, for me it's not very difficult, but my goal always is to find a room with a bunch of smart people that are smarter than me, and this is the case, and that you're way smarter than me.
Me too. I thought that's what I was coming here for.
Taylor, you're so good, Taylor.
All righty, so let's switch to baseball.
So good. That was great, Taylor.
Let's switch to baseball. So seriously, your take. I mean, you've got the education on this. You've been in it for 5 years. Are you agreeing with what the marvelous mortgage Scott Morris is saying?
I do agree. I think we're going to see a not dead but certainly slower second part of the year, maybe the beginning of the first year. That's relatively a normal phenomenon for the real estate cycle in a year.
So the boil down Scott's monologue, right? Recession, end of sometime. I happen to think, I always believe we've been in a recession since the beginning of this year. To me, I think we are in one, but I'm not an economist or even play one on television. But I think globally we will be in a pretty heavy recession coming next year, and I'm trying to find some historical data as I'm talking to you. But you're saying as we go deeper into the recession, the mortgage rates are going to drop, right?
Correct.
And historically, that's what happens, right? Historically, when you start getting into these recessions, mortgage rates to come down. I have to tell you, it raises some concerns with me, right? We've got an inventory problem to start with, struggle to start with, right? In a weird way, the higher interest rates are kind of helping the inventory a little bit.
Right.
But not a lot, right? I'm looking at the numbers. We are not getting a lot of inventory coming on the market on that end of it. So do you think if we start getting back to 3 and 4, is that going to put more pressure on us across the board? How is that going to impact the market?
Are we even going to get back to 3 or 4?
I think we are. Not 3, but I think we're going to get to the 4s.
Let's see Taylor's take on this. Anywhere you want to go, and then Scott, we got some smack talk on the feed from Yancey and Higgins polishing off bottles of bourbon. I do think right now, though, that Scott might be in the catbird seat of winning this bet here. That's a topic for later in the show. Taylor, the program is yours.
I think we will see a small inventory problem if we get down to 3 or 4, for the simple fact that we saw one 2 years ago where if I buy a house in the last few months at 6 and 7, and I'm not going to move anyway in 4 months, but your refinance activity is going to spike back up. You tell me if I'm wrong about that.
No, 100%. Everybody, that's why I tell every client, let's stop talking about fancy products and this and that. Let's talk about keeping the cost small, because for all these other things, there's a price that you're going to pay in some sort of discount or origination to get there. Whereas if you're paying $20 more a month without that, and we know that you're going to refinance this loan in 24 months, you're never going to get the money that you spend back to get to whatever fancy low rate that you want to get to right now.
But right now, also what I'm seeing is a significant amount of deferment activity from buyers. And so we have a natural, if we had a natural life, year where you had 5 buyers buying in the month of October, well, 3 of those buyers might say, let me take myself out of this game, and then I'm going to re-enter the game when things look more favorable for me on the buy side.
On top of that, Taylor, you've got the sellers saying that.
If the seller's saying that as well, they're afraid they're not going to get as much money as they would.
I agree 1,000%. The flip side to that, though, is, maybe the sellers, because inventory is maybe perception is increasing a little bit. Maybe I'll sell and there's an opportunity to buy.
Well, let me tell you a story about that. So a couple of weeks ago, I listed a house on the south side of town. And every time I do
Fifth Street or Avon?
Avon.
Okay.
Avon. Every time I do a market comparison before I list a house, I always wonder, should I go at the top end of this range? Should I go at the bottom of this range? There's always that uncertainty.
Sure.
Well, I looked at the other houses in the neighborhood selling, and frankly, they weren't. So I listed it at the top end of what I thought a safe range was. 2 days later, I had multiple offers at $25,000 over the asking price.
Wow.
That was 3 weeks ago during this slow period. Now, what's important to sellers right now is making sure your house is the diamond out there. If you take an extra 2 weeks clearing the weeds out of your flower beds, mulching your flower beds, if your refrigerator is rusted out, buy a new refrigerator. I mean, my client might have had a $10,000 price bump on $1,000 of mulch because that house showed so well. And so many sellers right now have been, and frankly real estate agents, have been conditioned that they can just throw anything on the market and it's like chumming the waters. And we have to get back to a time where you're actually marketing properties and you're preparing your property to be marketed.
This is the time.
Give the man some props, right? That was a hell of a take right there.
Yeah, that's the money.
Hell of a take. Sarah Hill Buchensky says you're looking good, and it's been a while since she's seen you, since you guys started in real estate together.
Yeah.
Michael Buchensky's got some props. Go ahead, gentlemen. You guys want to jump in?
So I just, this is exactly what we're trying to pivot to on the show. To Jerry's started, to offer some sort of dealer choice and some clarity and stuff like that. There are solutions, right? There are ways that we can help folks buy and sell, and this is when the pros show up. And you mentioned something that I've repetitively have been saying. I used to have 5 things. I've added 6 now. For those who watch or listen, they get tired of me saying this, but it's location, price, features, condition, timing, and frankly, you open the door. Who's on the other side matters, right? I mean, let's call it what it is. So when who is we are working with on the other side? If I'm working with Taylor on the other side, I know I got a professional. If I got Scott involved in it, I know it's a professional on it. I know Closure Title's on it. Charlottesville Settlement's on it. We got professionals on the other side, and we will work through the hiccups. Because my texts are blowing up right now. I've got a couple of deals that hiccups are happening now. They didn't happen 6 months ago. People just didn't care.
Oh,
right?
This is a PSA to all buyers out there. If you're using a national lender,
stop.
Don't.
Stop.
You will have a problem.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Listing, right? You have a seller, right, on that end of it. Going to be an honest and straightforward question on it. If you're looking at two deals, one's Scott and one's a national, what are you going to recommend to your client?
I'm going to take Scott's offer.
Yeah.
If I can get that to a competitive level.
Sure, of course.
I'm going to take Scott's.
Well, you know, but what is competitive level, right? You know, if it's some digital, you know, Uncle iPhone thing, and you got nobody to talk to, instead you call Scott and say, look, I got a problem, and we get it fixed, that is worth a ton of money.
Oh, it's worth a ton of money and time.
I got a call on Sunday morning. Hey, I got a pre-approval from Rocket. Some stuff seems weird. Can you talk to these people? Talk to them over the phone, get application. There's self-employment there. Husband has no credit score. There's a way to structure this and get it done, but with the loan program that the agent was sent, it would not work that way. And this would be a problem in their world where there's, you know, you're talking about call center LOs, no relationship to the agents, to where if they screw it up and we don't find out 3 weeks ago, and then I'm stepping in at the last minute to step in and save, like getting those challenges addressed in the very beginning and getting them with someone local is, I think, the most important for, you know, preventing problems before they're really problems.
I know it's all over your feed. It's all over my feed. I read these articles. These online companies are laying people off in droves, right? So
Redfin.
Excuse me?
Redfin's
I'm
an example.
talking about the loan officers, just the mortgage side of the house. These online, so
yeah, there's been some huge shutdowns, especially in non-QM, and then wholesale lenders that have a retail side dissolving their wholesale just to focus on retail. I mean, there's a lot of different movements.
So to Taylor's point, is halfway through the deal, you can find I got a different loan officer because they got laid off.
You can find you have a different loan officer, or you can find the underwriting department of that firm is grossly incompetent.
Sure.
I had a deal that closed probably 2 months late, and it was a very messy deal. My client wanted to use Rocket Mortgage, and I could not break them out of that
decision.
We get to about 2 weeks before the closing, the lender sends over a ton of conditions on the appraisal. We satisfy all those conditions. It takes us quite a bit of time because you know how hard it is to get contractors in, people to come in and inspecting. The day we satisfy the conditions, the lender, takes a month to satisfy the conditions. The lender sends another condition. I call the lender and I say, why didn't you send this to me? I asked you about this a month ago. I said, there's going to be no other conditions. We're going to miss the closing date at this point. They said, oh, there's going to be nothing else. They send a follow-up condition. They have no power with their underwriting department to do anything. They have no influence. They're just somebody sitting in office, probably not even the loan officer. It's like a loan officer liaison. You call your point of contact. I have to call the loan officer about that. You are the loan officer. I've called you. No, I'm the loan officer liaison.
And not just that, Navy Fed is also notoriously impossible.
So let's talk about the skills that you needed to keep the deal together, because not only are you managing your buyer, you need to now manage the seller's expectations and the seller's agent. So talk about the skills that you needed to do that, because that's where we are in the market right now. You've got to have these skills.
Well, I want to give my clients a real huge shout out.
Sure.
They are.
But you need to keep the seller in the game, right?
Well, so I'm giving my clients, the seller was the one that it took some skill to handle.
Sure.
But my clients are military folks, incredibly level-headed and very business-oriented, and did not panic one time, which is important to remember as a buyer or a seller in the process. This is a business decision. It's unemotional for the most part.
It's kind of important.
Well, it's emotional in terms of emotional. This is your home, but people aren't trying to take one over on you on the other side like we often interpret it to be.
Sure, but even when we go through the process, from most of the I've done quite a few agent loans and or heard them dealing with like a personal purchase. It's like there's a level of all of a sudden emotional and anxiety.
I have to admit that I was pretty stressed out when I bought a house too.
That weighs on the scale, even though that you've made the sausage.
Sure.
I used to not have gray hair until I started. Hold it, that might have been my daughter's. I retract that statement.
But to your point. Making sure you're working with somebody on the other side. I was working with another nest agent.
Yeah.
And she's excellent. I'll give a shout out.
So we communicated?
We communicated. Honest, open communication.
There you go. That's it.
when I'm dealing with another agent, unemotional with that agent, just factual, unemotional, polite.
And this part of the skill, and I know, just getting to know you for the first time really in depth here at the moment.
He's a pro.
Asking the right questions is a huge skill. Sometimes, and people, we have to ask the right questions, right? If we ask the right questions, we can help with the right answer.
That's right. That's right.
A lot of comments coming in, guys. So let's go to the feed. Sarah echoes what you're saying, and Scott, you're going to love to hear this about using the local lender. She's 100% emphasizing that. Kevin Yancey wants us to talk about the National Association of Realtors report, where last month, I think it was 35% of the deals were done in cash.
Yeah. A
cash scenario. He wants to. He has concerns with that. Buchensky says this, Coach, a 2-1 buy down is an excellent program for this market. If you think the home will appraise for higher, we can increase the sales price and incorporate a buy down. This has to be paid by the sellers. It's a 2-1 buy down, which basically gives you a 2% lower rate in the first year, 1% lower rate in the second year. Then the rate goes to what it would have been. So for example, if we lock you at 7, the first year rate is 5, the second year rate is 6, and then third year rate is going forward is 7. This gives the client 24 months to refinance, a $400,000 purchase with 20% down. The start rate is 7%, no points. So the first year payment rate would be 5%, second year would be 6%. We would need to increase the sales price by $7,100, which is the cost to buy down. First year principal and interest would be $1,017. Second year principal would be $1,918. These are the type of ideas we were talking about on Monday.
Coach, thanks for making us better.
I have on the show called the 2-1 a gimmick, and I stand behind that from a math perspective of if you get that same amount of concessions, then either rolled into a combination of concessions for closing costs and reduction in sales price, it's a wash. Now, however, I have changed my tune a little bit because I think it is a fantastic tool for the listing agent to advertise in the place of a reduction to draw more unique attention to the property. Like instead of saying, knowing that you're gonna have to reduce, or if you know that you're gonna have to reduce and kind of come up with something else because you had a tough seller stuck to the top of the price point, not getting a lot of action, to go in and add into the listing description or like a flyer that I put out, whatever, seller will contribute to 2-1 buy down, lowering interest rate for borrower. I think that's a great marketing tool because it's got to come from the seller to make sense. But if you take the money and you reduce the price and you pay the higher rate, you're still coming out.
So I'm going to push back a little bit, and I love you to death on that. I'm good with the seller concessions, to help for closing costs. I'm good with the 2-1 buy down. Adjusting the price, kind of impacts the whole market, right? So then it'll start getting into what we were talking about on Monday, quarter over quarter price drop.
I'll pull up 20 listings right now that are over $500,000 that are starting to run days on market because they're
overpriced. They're overpriced.
That's my point.
They're overpriced.
My point is
but
you know that you're going to have to be making an adjustment no matter what.
He's talking about comps for future sales.
I understand
that's what he's
exactly
talking about.
What he's saying. I'm talking about using this 2-1 as
I think that's a freaking
idea.
Great idea. I think it's good. And we've been talking on this on our pre-production show and going forward, everybody, this, I'm going to go back to this. This 10% reduction of OPEC is going to impact us.
Should we talk about that? I'm getting that from Kevin Higgins in Greenwood. I'm getting it Bob Yarborough, the king of Redfields. Bob Yarborough, you put this on our radar. Let's go ahead and talk about this. Who wants to set the stage on? We need to set the stage on who, what, when, where, why first.
I'll let you take that.
Okay, sir. Scott, you want to start on this? Let's do this for the viewers and listeners. What's happening with OPEC from like a 7th grade standpoint.
But I want to add a twist to that a little bit. You need to think about that, and we need to pray for all the folks down in Florida. But you kind of also have to tie the two together, and that's where I think the slippery slope is what the impact of the hurricane on our market in Florida plus this oil.
Why don't I go? I'll go Florida.
I'm not going to combine the two. I'll jump on OPEC.
Okay, you go OPEC. I'll go Florida Hurricane Ian.
Okay. OPEC has been pushed and pushed and pushed to increase production to lower the cost of oil. Some of this has to do with the war in Russia and freeing up some other things. We're already tapped into our national reserves. OPEC is an oil cartel that controls probably 70% of the world's oil. I could be wrong.
It's a large number.
It's a lot.
A big number.
All you had to do is live through the 70s to understand that.
And
that's what's coming on the feed.
Yeah.
They are reducing their amount of production because they foresee a worldwide recession. Not just, inflation is not just affecting the U.S., it's affecting countries everywhere in the world.
I can speak to that personally,
They're running
Scott.
8 to 10%.
My family back home in Austria, this is impacting them hugely.
Now, in conjunction with that, you just had the new chick who's the prime minister of England, who made some financial decisions that 50% of the value of the sterling, the pound, was lost.
Oh, you're talking about England.
And then combined with the rate increases that the UK is facing for the first time, they've been in negative interest rate territory for over a decade. So as they increase that, it's actually not strengthening the euro as quickly as the US dollar is strengthening, which is affecting the value of international money, since a lot of it is traded in oil. So initially, this impact from OPEC is going to push us more quickly into a recession because people will spend less on associated goods in their lives, Walmart trips, vacations, different types of things.
Local restaurants, coffee shops.
Local restaurants,
Yeah.
all of those
They're going to make
things.
up the difference somewhere.
Typically, your tertiary, your secondary spending goes in after you've paid for your place to live and how you get to work. So, however, once we get into the recession, or like
Really
officially, I think we're already there, but
we all do.
Once institutional money starts buying back into bonds, that's going to drive the U.S. 10-year back down into the 2x territory and put mortgage rates in the 4s. As that is all occurring, once going into next, none of this stuff happens as fast as people predict it to, and it typically doesn't slow down. Like every libertarian, whomever was screaming inflation, 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 as soon as all the COVID spending started, and it took a while to get there, but we got there. We're here now. We're trying to figure out how to get to the other side.
That's just budgeting 101, right?
So when everything fell in March of 2020. You could buy a 55-gallon barrel of oil, or as much oil as your heart can, when they talk about it in barrels, and put it in your garage and been paid $35 a barrel because the economies across the world were shut down.
So are we going back there, you think?
We're not going back there,
Okay.
but we're the reason that they're reducing their production is because they don't want to be stuck with a bunch of excess.
My father-in-law used to actually be on OPEC. But he's been passed for many, many years. I think this is about OPEC. So the thing you got to weave into this is OPEC X includes Russia, right? And so I think what they're trying to do is trying to drive this dollar per barrel up over $100, 120. Okay, well, time will tell, but I think that's what the play is here.
Here's the problem. Here's it in a nutshell.
But it impacts us.
Oil production cut down.
Yeah.
Oil production down.
Gas up.
Demand is going to stay the same. Prices are going to go up.
Gas
the
up.
concern is outer counties, other side of the mountain, driving to the epicenter of employment, Charlottesville City, it's going to be more expensive.
Okay,
Does that soften real estate? That's a concern.
But that helps us get to lower rates. So if we get to lower rates, does the lower rates balance out the
It
gap?
does, but in the short term, there's pain points.
We're going. We are going to
The
go
question
through.
is how long that payment's going to be.
That is the thing. And here's the
6
follow-up.
months. 6 months to Scott's call.
What are we betting? I already bet my mustache. I can't bet it anymore.
Here's a follow-up. Then we got to get Taylor in the
You
mix.
got
The
some
follow-up,
eyebrows.
and then we got to get Taylor in the mix. I'm going to give you guys one paragraph on the impact of Hurricane Ian. We stipulate this so we cannot be taken out of context. We are sympathetic and
Absolutely.
empathetic of anyone that had destruction of their homes in Florida. Okay, just because we're talking about the financial impact of this hurricane does not mean we're not sympathetic to these folks. Okay, I should not be taken out of context.
And
I said
send
that.
money, please, to
Yeah.
help the folks down.
Oh, actually, before or after the show, I've got a friend. His name is Brent McNay. He runs a company called Brenco Solutions. Does huge 35 renovations going at a time. Just amazing dude. Helps me solve all sorts of problems. He has taken a portion of his trucks, crews, everything, and sent to Florida. I'll share like the either GoFundMe or Cash App.
There's a microcosm of what we're talking about right
That's
there.
Exactly right.
The labor heading to Florida and the impact it's going to have on construction remodeling locally. Here's the nitty gritty, then Taylor gets in the mix. According to CoreLogic's report, along the Florida Gulf Coast, a total of 1,044,412 single-family and multi-family homes were at a potential risk of storm surge damage with a reconstruction cost value, RCV, of about $258 billion.
And I got to tell you, when it's all said and done, that number is going to double.
Continue, and he's right, Additionally, 7,201,572 single-family and multi-family residents with a combined reconstruction cost value of $1.6 trillion are within the moderate and high flash flood risk bands. So here's the nitty-gritty, 7th grade language. Taylor, you jump in. Hurricane Ian destroyed a bunch of homes. Because there's a ton of destruction, this is going to drive up the cost of goods. Lumber, for example, because they need a ton of it to rebuild these homes and get them remodeled.
Labor.
Furthermore, labor in the Mid-Atlantic, the Southeast region, wherever you want to call it, is going to be sprinting to this area because that's where the jobs are. If the labor sprints to that area locally, Central Virginia, how will that impact labor options? If there's not a lot of people working on construction locally, then the people that stay have the leverage with their employer, which then drives up the cost of labor. The GCs, the contractors, the builders pass that on to the customers. That's it in 7th grade language. Taylor, the show is yours.
I mean, from that synopsis, it doesn't sound like the prices are going to go down, even in the outside counties. And the other question is, what's the substitutable good from a house in the outside counties, especially within certain market segments? I mean, if you have a pre-qualification of $300,000, you say, well, I now don't want to drive.
But then what's your alternative?
What's been the alternative?
Renting? And what's going to happen with that?
I don't.
Right? It's going to go up.
It's going to continue to go up. I don't. I don't see any landlords looking too charitable.
That's a very good point. In fact, I put this on Twitter. Then we'll throw this back to Taylor. This was in a conversation with John Blair, town attorney in Stanton. I love John Blair. Higher rates, interest rates, means less home buyers. Less home buyers means more renters. More renters means more rental demand. More rental demand and a finite rental options means finite rental options, landlords have the leverage. Landlords with leverage means rising rental rates. Taylor, back to you, sir.
I think it's kind of what you're describing here is certain market segments are being affected in different ways than other market segments. Cash buyers buying investment properties, those properties are going to, that's going to brace. Those are going to continue to be valuable, even more valuable, because they're going to cash flow at increasingly high prices. Your entry-level home in the city probably will continue to stay the same because of the location. I think the luxury properties in the surrounding counties, maybe I don't want to drive out there for a $600,000 house in Louisa because I want 2 acres. Maybe I'll settle for a half an acre, 20 minutes closer to town because of these gas prices. Those properties might see some softening. But I think it's those inelastic goods or those non-substitutable goods that are going to continue to see a stability of price, and you're just going to have the consumer having to be willing to have a short-run worse interest rate to purchase that on the assumption they will be able to refinance it in 24
I want to ask Kevin.
Dude's a smart guy. Keith, show's yours.
I want to ask Kevin a question in a minute about the other side of the mountain, because this is something I've been talking about all the time about gas prices.
He's referencing Kevin Yancey, King of Waynesboro, knows the other side of the mountain inside and out.
Like the Poconos Holy
Yeah,
Water.
that's right.
So I ran numbers. quarter over quarter, right? You know,
Yeah.
we all belong to Carr, but I do my numbers long before Carr does their numbers.
Sure.
So second quarter versus third quarter, city of Charlottesville, we went down $62,000 on the median sales price, quarter over quarter, right? Now, first quarter we were up. First quarter over second quarter by 90,000. We're down 38 units. A number of sales went from 100. This is single family detached, no new construction, kind of keep it nice and simple.
All right.
Jerry referenced seventh grade. I like to be at a third grade level.
Okay.
Just because it took me about 10 years to graduate third grade, but we do that. So, but it's funny to tie in Kevin into this, and I really want to hear his feedback. That didn't happen on the other side of the mountain. The numbers weren't huge, but you know, in Waynesboro, quarter over quarter, the value was up $2,000. In the county of Augusta, quarter over quarter, second over third, it was up $5,000. First quarter over second quarter, by the way, in Augusta County was up $30,000. So it's balancing out a little bit, right? So what do you think, Kevin? Is this extra bump in gas, because it's coming, is going to put the brakes on that?
Is the extra bump in gas going to put the brakes on it? Is the extra bump in gas tailwinds for EVs even more so? 8% of vehicles are 8% of vehicles in America right now are electric vehicles. I would expect that number is going to spike with this kind of scenario.
But it can't spike because you can't buy them. Believe me, I'm in the market.
The Tesla is difficult to find. Some of the entry point ones are around.
Bolt, something like that. Yeah.
Stuff like that is around. Yancey says nope, and he's about to give you a hot take on this in a matter of seconds. Scott Morse, we need you to get in here. Multiple folks are asking about OPEC. Obviously, that's in the news right now. And multiple folks are asking about cash, all cash buyers that you're seeing, which is in the market right now. Scotty Moe, anywhere you want to go?
All cash buyers don't find their way into my world until they've purchased the house and then say, hey,
want to pull money out and buy something else.
I want to get some of that money back. However, I have heard from some agents that, and this is so weird to me that it's that the complaints come from multiple people in the last 2 weeks.
Complaints.
Agents that accepted a cash offer and then found like a page 3 niche like somewhere like where they're all of a sudden the sellers are now seeking financing.
Oh, let's talk about that.
So I just was stirring the pot. You guys can talk about it.
Oh, great. Thanks, Scott.
I know enough to hear that it's happening, and they're like, I said, well, then my solution to that, if you're that annoyed, is go let me have a conversation with your seller, and we'll make the seller state that any financed offers must cross-qualify through preferred lender. And
so this is when the pros show up, right? So those who are not familiar with our VAR 600, that we can read sentence by sentence and syllable by syllable.
Right.
On that end of it, if you don't address that in the contract, the seller can pivot.
They can say no, yeah.
Excuse me, I apologize. The buyer can pivot.
Yeah, that's right.
The buyer can pivot. It's from a cash deal. So, you know, when we do cash deals, we make sure provisions are struck out of the contract, and we always make sure that there is an addendum, to the contract that clearly says that this cannot convert to any other thing. Plus, we want a proof of funds part of the contract on that end of it. But Scott's 100% right. Mm-hmm. If you don't address that, and everybody agrees to it, because that's the key here, it can pivot, and then everybody's head blows up.
I've done it many times.
You've done that many times?
The pivot or the striking out?
The pivot. But I never do it. So back to your comment about the pros. You have to maintain your goodwill with other agents in town. If it's happening, I'm actually putting additional explicit language in Section 31 of my contract saying that this is a cash deal.
This guy's good.
Here's my proof of funds, but my purchaser reserves the right to decide with no penalty to the seller to obtain financing.
So So
what's the advantage of doing that? Let's explain that.
Well, if they're going to refinance, I think they save money. on the backside of refinance, not to pay 2 closing fees, especially if they're going to refinance.
So
anyway.
on the second half of that, the reserves the right, but will close regardless?
Close
Okay.
regardless.
Yeah.
The seller has no.
Yeah.
It's the
That's
same as
smart.
cash close to the seller.
That's
There
smart.
is no penalty to
It
the
won't
seller on
delay the
appraisals. It won't delay
closing,
closals.
yada, yada.
Generally, these are investor clients who have a lender they've worked with before, and they've got all their stuff ready to go.
So
it doesn't
our-
even close. It doesn't even add time to the closing.
Our
date.
last 4 listing sales in the last week or so were all cash. Last 4.
Unsurprising.
But I mean, that's not like he said. It's not surprising.
It's not surprising.
Yeah.
The buyer, Taylor, is I sold my house up in Northern Virginia, New York. These are $400,000 or $500,000 purchases on that end of it, and they're sitting in a rental and waiting. That's what they're doing.
Well, because the alternative is what? Putting in an index fund that's 20, 30% down for the year?
Well,
I mean, what do you always say on the show? In times of hardship, like on Wall Street, the money
dirt.
goes to dirt,
Buy dirt.
and bricks and sticks?
so what they'll do is they made this X amount of dollars, C amount of dollars go someplace, and the remaining balance is to buy, right? Because they're selling it for considerably, they sold for considerably more. But that's what they're doing. They're sitting tight and they're waiting, right? And they're waiting, and I said this on the show, I think on Monday, I think you're going to start seeing in 2023 and 2024 this kind of generational buyer divide, right?
Well, John Blair said this about a month and a half ago. I think Blair's watching. JB, are you watching? He said the folks that locked in rates at 4.5 or under versus the folks that locked in rates, say, what? Call it 5 and 6, 5.5 or above. Like the 4.5 or under, what's the motivation for those folks to sell? And the savings that they're getting monthly, on that 4.5 versus the person next door of them that has 6+. This is where he's going to chime in with the divorce and the kids and the jobs and moving.
I'm gonna say I am. Those people will face life decisions, but the other thing is, it depends on your price point. Like if you're in the
$1 million plus.
I know 600 and above. Where we're starting to see it stick, that 500 and up. If you're 500 and up and you're in the lower rate, you probably aren't going anywhere.
Well,
but if you're in that move up range and you've built this equity, and think about the age, think about the mentality, the reason that
I'm sitting here.
Well, neither one of us are 27 anymore, bro. And
Well, Taylor.
Actually, I turned 31 on Monday.
Okay,
See?
sorry.
Yeah.
Well, belated happy birthday
He's the
to you.
spring chicken here. Happy birthday,
And
Taylor.
I officially hate you.
Do we have a
I hate
applause?
myself for that. It hurts. It hurts.
It hurts. You're so young. Like, come on, stop. But the people who
Kevin, help me out here, brother.
4
Kevin,
years
help me
ago
out.
purchased at that 4.5, and now they've got, let's say we get a 10, 20% reduction. They're still sitting on a pile of equity that takes them into their next house. They are more willing to say, all right, I'll deal with it. If you're so confident that you think rates are going to come down and I can take this, go out, buy what I want, and that move up that's the sweet spot, bro.
So Taylor was spot on, right? NAR, National Association of Realtors, for decades it was people who moved every 5 to 7 years. It is now 8 to 10 years. So the folks that have bought houses, and you've been in the business for 5 years, these people weren't moving anyway. I mean, there's life changes. People move. People pick us up and say, hey, I need some help. This is what we want to do. This is what we're here to do to help. But that buyer really isn't going to go ahead and sell statistically, right, statistically, for 10 years or 5 years. In my case, 20 years. Mrs. Smith's been trying to get me to move forever, and I've been saying
Here's a follow-up. Here's a follow-up on this. If you're locking in a rate at obscene levels, we're talking in the 2s, the 3s, even the low 4s.
All right, I'm glad that's what we're calling obscene. But okay.
What is obscene? Is that fair?
No, I thought we were going to go like 7%.
Yeah. Obscene levels, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s. I mean, anomaly rates, historical anomalies, let's call them, not the norms. The norms are the upper 5s, the 6s, and the 7s. Let's cut to the chase. That's the norm. It's just the buyer and seller got trained on obscene levels of 2s and 3s and said, oh my gosh, that's what it should be, when that's not the case.
We were saying that
for a year.
Years.
Years and a half, yeah. So how is that going to impact the inventory when the dudes and the gals have, like Kevin Yancey just said, we purchased in 2017, we have a 2.75% rate. We're getting unsolicited cash offers of double what we paid for and still not selling.
Because where's he going to go? Because he's in paradise.
So let me bring some of what was described as my angry elf energy from last week's show.
Who said that?
Whoa. Let's talk about who said that.
Was that better half?
Personal,
better half?
No.
Okay.
Personal friend. Personal friend.
That's a good friend. It's a good friend, right?
That is a good friend.
Yeah. I want friends like that.
It was constructive criticism.
Exactly. That's the kind of friend I want, though.
I just won't be able to. That image of elf, of you being elf. Oh,
dude.
Halloween, that's it. We got
it's a straight shooter, is what he has.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
Halloween outfit for you now.
So with that, what's coming that we're going to deal with for the recession, and we talk about inventory, there's hopefully going to be people who there's already an increase in delinquencies. That is going to get worse between now and April. And because with the Fed continuing to raise short-term interest, in 2018, one of the main stories or narratives about the U.S. was low savings, high credit, and balances. Low savings balances, high credit balances. As people went through good times, they took on things that maybe they may not be able to manage through some difficulty, and we're going to see more delinquencies. It is not going to be like what we saw during the Great Unpleasantness. However, it's going to occur. And the people who can take advantage and sell before it turns into like negotiations with the bank.
So you got to reach out to a trusted advisor. You got to
reach out to get on the phone. Go, hey, I've got myself in some trouble. How do we get out of it?
Because the bank is much more willing to force the issue now, because the bank realizes the market is still relatively hot. So they're going to say, hey, you're 31 days behind on your mortgage. Let's list this house immediately. It's very different than 2008, 2009, where there were for sale signs everywhere.
So this to make clarity here, right, because it's one who has lived through this, one who's had this happen to them before. You need to reach out to Taylor or a trusted advisor or Scott before you hit 31 days.
You're talking at like day 5 behind.
If you know, you've got something I've been talking about. The next big thing I'm worried about is unemployment, because once that starts climbing up, everything that we've got going on right now is just going to blow up. But
so when you say, you mean national statistics, or are you talking about locally?
Look, the folks that are listening to our show and all that stuff is local. We can talk national, but I'm kind of speaking locally.
Okay.
So if you look, I've lost $17 million last going around. My problem was I thought I could fix it. Right? Thought I could fix this. Mm-hmm. Guess what? I couldn't. Right? So, if there's an issue going on in your life and, you see the handwriting on the wall, don't go to 31 days, because once that happens, you lose control of it. Mm-hmm. If you're at a couple of weeks in, you pick up the phone, you call Taylor, you call whoever and say, or Scott, and say, look, do I have a refi option? No. Hey, man, we better put this house on the market. And before the bank gets involved in it. Once the bank, I'm telling you, folks, once the banks get involved in it, it's a nightmare.
The unpleasantness rises exponentially.
So Neil Williamson coined the time of great unpleasantness, because I couldn't come up with a term that didn't make me cry on it. So he came up with that. But look, to your point, Taylor, I've got numbers going back third quarter over third quarter over third quarter, year over year.
Okay.
So third quarter in 2018, the median sales price, single family detached, no new construction, in the city of Charlottesville was $360. This quarter it was $455. That's a $65,000 delta, positive delta, and that's including the 21,000 we just lost. Right on that end of it. So to your point, people are buying, people are holding. I think long-term, I know long-term, real estate increases in value. You just got to sit and buy and hold.
Mike says, look, with INJIC, UVA, the hospitals, the government jobs, the IT, the booze venues, which we talked about last week, there are a ton of jobs. And we're fortunate. We're somewhat insulated from some of these national trends, and he's exactly right. That's what Scott's been saying as well. You certainly have been saying that as well. a lot of folks on the feed. Let's go to Michael Plecker. Yes, Realty Partners, Michael Plecker.
Michael.
He said, I was told rates would not get into the 6 this year when I said last spring it would. I've also been told rates will not get close to 8% by 2024. Last week, the 30-year fix pushed 7.5% by the second quarter, because we currently have no one that is capable of getting inflation under control. Just my 2 cents. Having said that, when we do get more inventory, inflation stabilizes and energy costs come down, homeowners can refi. Michael Plecker also says this, one of the Shenandoah Valley's finest catchers, a backstop in the New York Mets farm system. Plecker says he loves when I say that.
I know.
Plecker, that's why I say
I'm going to see him tomorrow.
That's
he's going to have a grin like that all day long.
Plecker also says we're begging OPEC for production while shutting our U.S.-owned production down. Fuel prices were headed up drastically before Putin made his move. The lunatics are running the asylum. Plecker, I love when you throw a little bit of the politics in there. Smith over there cringes a little bit, as you can see.
You'll get direct from Mr. Plecker.
Yes, he does not.
You'll get direct.
And that's what I like about Plecker.
But he's Mr. Waynesboro, right?
Yeah.
That's his whole life over there. That and Kevin, and
now he's the king of Fontana.
He's the king of Fontana. I'm still thinking if gas goes up, I think you're going to start seeing a slowdown the other side of the mountain.
I think no doubt about that. You agree? You disagree with us. He disagrees with us because there's finite inventory and price points that are approachable there. That's why you disagree.
I think you have to have like
a long-term
inventory, full, flatter marketplace. And
so the point is, I need to buy a house. I'm going to buy a house because
that's what he's saying.
Because I can afford it in Waynesboro and Augusta County right now, at least.
That's decreasingly becoming the case.
Greene County, by the way, is the same scenario. It's not decreasing at such a rate as that. So that's the next grow on it. Yeah. But talking about the other side of the hill, on that end of it, where am I going to? I'm going to do this. My rent's going up double digits, single digits year over year. And to Scott's point, is I'm just going to buy one less of these tiny lattes that I have a day or 2 days or however many I drink on that end of it, because it's going into fuel, right? My house is more important than my extra, where I live, where I raise my family.
Elasticity of good, yeah.
So south and west are drive for affordability. A little bit of Louisa, but north and east, we've got higher price point areas. We've got Spring Creek, as you had Short Pump, and versus Waynesboro, Buckingham. There's options in both directions for everybody as far as people choosing to move up and find something nicer that's got a little, but there may be a little bit of distance involved.
You brought up Spring Creek. I ran numbers on Sunday, quarter over quarter.
I love setting you up for some
$132,000 jump. Second quarter over third quarter in the sales price, $132,000.
Now is that resale is not new construction?
No, so this is single family detached, no new construction.
Okay, all right.
So what I'm trying to do is take a look at micro locations, and I'm picking subdivisions. I just happened to pick Spring Creek on the end of it, and when I ran these numbers, I had to do it 3 times because I was like, nah, that can't be right.
Right.
But. So I think we talked about it on Monday. I think that's this cash buyer, right, that sold something somewhere else, waiting for it. It's a golf course community, yada, yada, yada.
Proximate to Richmond.
It's close to Richmond.
Yeah.
UVA's opened up a medical center there. Martha Jefferson's got one there. I know the best Mexican restaurant in the country.
El Mariachi.
Country.
Johnny O getting some props right here.
Steven, I know you got Johnny O. You got to get the brother in.
Steven does all the work. Let's face it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Johnny. Sorry about that.
Yancey says this, to Taylor's point, there's 10 times possible availability here than in Charlottesville and Albemarle County.
And that's where the builders are going.
And that's where the builders are going. That's exactly right. So that's the counter narrative to us and the rising fuel prices and softening price points over there.
So I think Taylor's right. People are going to buy, right? People are going to move there. The struggle is bringing the trusted advisors together. So I just found the infographic I was been looking for in the beginning of the show, and this is, what happens in recessions to mortgage rates. So 2020 we lost 1 point. This is over the peak. 2008 we lost 1.3% down. 2001 was negative 0.3. 91, which I think this recession is going to be more like, was 2.2%. 2.25% below the cap. So if we're hitting 8%, 2.2 puts us around 5.5%, 5.75.
So typically,
81 was five points down.
it's not on. I don't think it's on directly with what you're looking at there, but typically, the Fed starts to resume QE 9 months after the initial recession begins. And I'm calling the recession the initial 2 full quarters of loss of GDP.
Was what, Q3 this year?
Yeah. So let's stretch it out to the end of that, kind of to where we are now. I'm telling you,
You're thinking fourth quarter next year?
No, I'm saying.
He's saying end Q2, early Q3 next year.
Beginning Q2 is where. So when we've got.
You think they got the guts to do that?
I think they might have no choice.
They don't have. They're already doing. They already were less than honest about. They're still purchasing mortgage-backed securities. They're not unloading them, and part of that has to do with China's influence in escaping the bond market. But as we go into this global recession, institutional money moves into bonds and drives yields down. Sure. Even though the Fed is going to continue to make its hikes, they have a role to play in trying to create the soft landing that they're prospecting
My
for.
sister-in-law, who lives in Vienna, Austria, her electric bill is double of mine. She's in a tiny little apartment. I'm in a 3,600 square foot home. They are making literally daily decisions on what kind of food they should buy and what they should not. This is usually impacting them in Europe.
All right, let's get Taylor's takes on these topics then. What areas and price points maintain values, persevere, and or potentially increase? What areas and price points could potentially soften or not persevere so much through what we have ahead?
Well, just off the back of the napkin, probably under $500,000 in the city or just in the surrounding areas of the city. You'll probably see some surrounding counties under a certain price cap, under $400,000, probably in surrounding counties, will brace. I think that people will start to. My number one, everybody makes a trade-off, and my number one comment to my first-time home buyers is, especially as we're walking around a house and they're naming off what they don't want, and I know, or what they do want, and I know that's not a possibility for them within their budgetary constraints, is make a list of everything that you want, and then you need to rank order those items and understand what's most and least important to you, so you will know, as you're looking at properties, what you're willing to cut and what you have to have. And I think what we're going to see is some of the rank order as people's money becomes less valuable and as these rates go up. You're going to see some of these rank orders shift, and a lot of the people that are put in a choice of continuing to rent, and then previously they had a choice between 20 minutes farther for $500,000 with an acre of land, or 20 minutes closer for $500,000 with a tenth of an acre of land. People who value the land are going to not continue to value that land, and we'll start to see the shift in what's desirable within a buyer change. But I think it's that entry-level price point, maybe some jobs that are not going to be affected, doctors, you'll see like Ednam and places like that.
But they're entry point, but they're not really entry.
They're not entry point anymore. I mean, that's a whole separate discussion about.
My son-in-law is a doctor, and they're moving back to Virginia, so I understand.
This is a whole separate discussion about general affordability, and are some of these problems that we're talking. They've already been problems. I mean, when I was on the show last time, we talked about the essentially living purgatory that some people that worked in service jobs in the area were in, and I don't care if the prices go up or go down $50,000 either side.
They're never going to be in the capacity to build the savings for a down payment without creating a side hustle or an additional stream of income, because of the rent burns their income before they can create the savings to get.
But this is a point that Keith has been hammering home today, and I just want to reiterate about finding a trusted advisor. And not all houses are built equally, even within the same neighborhood. And I think you're looking at some of these numbers with the city of Charlottesville going, what do you say, down 30% to $30,000.
Yeah,
in the average
I
purchase
have to
price.
pull up the slide.
That's obviously not every house.
Sure.
I mean, I'm seeing houses that are still being bought for over the asking price, and then we're also seeing more houses having price corrections down that are listed higher.
So I've coined the term hyper-local market, and one side of the street makes a difference from the
Yeah.
other side of the street.
And it's important to have somebody on your team that knows that the right side of the street is the one that's going to sell with 15 offers when the market is softer, and that the left side of the street is the one that you're going to overpay for when the market is hot just because you want to have a house.
So I think that's called doing our job.
Doing our job. That's right.
Right.
Great take right there.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm digesting some of this stuff. I'm also thinking at 1 o'clock I got to give, that's the reason I'm in my suit, a presentation to the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors on the land trust and some of the great work that we're doing.
Yeah.
But I was in a meeting, Regional Housing Partnership meeting, and the folks from PHA quoted, in order to afford the average Charlottesville and urban ring rental unit, you've got to be making $20 an hour. That's the floor. $20 an hour.
Yeah.
I haven't worked for anybody my whole life, right? I've always worked for myself, but $20 an hour is I think a substantial amount of money. I don't know how many folks are.
It's $40K.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, the difference of 18, 16, you can't find anything. You can't rent anything. Mm-hmm. So you've got to be making that kind of money in order to afford a rental.
We went through an entire process in placing one of my loan assistants because they wanted her to have 3 times the income of the rental.
That's right.
And I'm like, I can almost get her if the pricing acceleration had it, I could have gotten her in a house in 2019 on which she's being paid today more easily than I could have gotten her into this rental. We ended up finding a solution, but
to add to that, most landlords are requiring 3 months now, right? First, second.
First, last security.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So
How are you supposed to save that much money with 40%?
First, last security is the down payment on a home.
Then you're basically at 3.5% there to make a down payment.
Yeah, and I hate
at 200-ish.
Right, and I hate to say this, but I mean it's fact, and we got to be straight shooters here. And you made this comment on Monday. The rents aren't going down.
No.
The rents are not going down. They're going up. So you just got this like unfortunate divide that's happening here. And we haven't even highlighted, we talked about this on Monday, Charlottesville City Council and the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors are raising the real estate tax rate.
We have a viewer.
Next year, they're raising it in Q1, Q2 of next year. Even 2 or 3 cents is a lot.
I'm going to leave her name out of it. We had a viewer that was interacting with us on Monday, called me yesterday, and trying to, out in Fluvanna County, do something for her father who's in bad health conditions, right? And was like, I chair the land trust, right? Greg is vice chair and I chair it. Trying to say, hey, do you have anything to help my father? I don't know what to do with, and we talked about it, we walked through, we came up with some solutions. I don't have anything for land trust. We were talking about, hey, maybe you can do an auxiliary dwelling unit. We walked through some ideas to try to help her, which is stuff that we're going to start tackling on the show going forward on some options for folks on that end of it. But at the end of the conversation, I couldn't help her. Talk about a helpless feeling.
Oh, I know.
Couldn't help her.
That's tough, guys. Gentlemen, a lot of comments coming in here. Plecker saying it's going to get worse here. We're highlighting...
Plecker with the doomsday. Come on, man.
We're highlighting on the show...
is he worried about Virginia Tech football? Is that what he's talking about?
He's sharing a link.
Weekend.
Yeah, Virginia's the best football team.
Are you talking about that maybe?
The best football team, and this is a guy who bleeds orange and blue. The best football team in West Virginia and the Commonwealth of Virginia is the football team from Harrisonburg.
JMU, baby.
JMU,
the best football team is JMU.
I got a graduate, multi-discipline graduate from that. I helped pay a little bit for that thing. My youngest daughter has a BA and a master's from JMU. Keith is making tackles on the gridiron, evidently, at the James Madison University football team. No. This puts in the feed here, local group. This is a topic that has many layers to the onion. So Wendell Wood has got the development on High Street,
245 units, apartments, none of them affordable housing.
It's all by right, by the way.
It's all by right.
Yeah.
Now a local group, and Plecker's putting this on the feed, one of the Shenandoah Valley's finest backstops, a catcher in the New York Mets farm system. A local group right in the High Street area, homeowners, are now galvanizing, trying to challenge the by right development that Wendell Wood's doing, the developer. 45 units, and they're trying to utilize the floodplain as leverage for their challenge. And it's very interesting because everyone is a YIMBY unless it happens in their backyard, and then folks quickly become a NIMBY.
Yeah, right.
And an additional 245 units is going to help this ecosystem because it adds more rentals. Even if it's not affordable rentals, it creates options which open up options at every different price point. We all know this. This is supply and demand. Econ 101 here. So what do you make of the fight against what he's trying to do? Why don't you start with this on High Street and the floodplain?
I've got a cramp in my hammy going on right now, so somebody else needs to start.
So, I mean,
that's a problem with bicycling too early in the morning.
I say good luck. Wendell Wood's the largest landowner outside of Westminster, Canterbury.
Dr. Hurt would be second.
Wendell Wood is the largest landowner in Albemarle County. Dr. Hurt, maybe not so much anymore. He's United Land Company, Dr. Hurt. Wendell Wood is, Wendell Wood is United Land Company. Dr. Hurt is Virginia Land Company.
That's exactly right.
Dr. Hurt, his holdings have diminished of late.
They have.
Wendell's have not. He's
my
influential
cramp is
man.
over. I can take a deep dive into that.
I think I think we're dealing with somebody who,
knows how to play the game.
And is local.
Yeah.
And is local. Keep that in mind.
And has been doing it for decades.
Think what you want about him. It's not. I don't see a bad thing here. I get that. Not in my backyard exists, but at the same time, prosperity for the area should as well.
You mind, Taylor, if I dive in on this?
Please.
So there may be some folks upset about it, but the reality of it's by right. The term by right has a very specific meaning to it. It may slow things down a little bit, whatever this group is trying to do. It's not going to stop it. Short of Mr. Woodward not wanting to do it any longer, right? It's unlike the project that he was doing downtown here, right? That there was a zoning requirement. There was permission required. So people understand by right. This does not get in front of city council. This does not get in front of, it'll get in front of the planning commission, but it's a consent agenda. It goes through the boxes that have to be checked in the site plan approval process. And as far as floodplain goes, I know Mr. Woodward very well enough to know he wouldn't be moving it forward if that was an issue.
Wendell Wood,
excuse me.
Yeah.
Wouldn't go forward to it. And even if it is, it's really simple. You put more than likely, this is going to be what's called a podium construction building. The first level, which is going to be parking, will be concrete. The first floor will be above that. So all the way you get out of floodplain, if that's it, as long as your first floor is above the 100-year floodplain,
there you go.
You're good. FEMA checks the box, and you rock and roll. Your car may get flooded in the parking area, but that'll drain out. Everybody will be happy as far as in the building, and they move. Nobody
forward. With a flooded car is going to be happy, but yes.
They'll at least still have a place to live, right, on that stuff. But so it's going to happen. It will happen on that end of it. And maybe the only impact, and I haven't dug deep into it, and Jerry, you probably know this, is that in an ARB corridor?
I don't know that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that might be the only.
That's a good question for Shawnee Tubbs.
Yeah, that's the only. If it's in the BA, the architectural review corridor, and it probably is, that just talks about color assigning and yada yada. It's not going to stop it. It will get built.
Sean Tubbs has done fantastic reporting on this. In fact, I think he's the only one in the area that's reporting on this right now, outside of the analysis we're given here on the show. A lot of folks are nervous about the floodplain. Bill says the ecological disaster potential. when it comes down to it, what they're really nervous about is quality of life. When it comes to traffic along High Street, the additional vehicles, they're talking 1,400 roughly additional cars per day on High Street, and High Street's no easy task right now.
I stay away from that High Street.
No easy. That's a path I take to get here from the Keswick area.
And the problem is people thought the city owned that land. I ride my bike along the river. People would sunbathe over there. They just assumed it was part of the city.
I mean, if you think about it, those apartments, if he does it the right way, are going to have like a river view from the apartments.
Right across the street in Albemarle County is another apartment complex in the back of Pantops. They're just going to be looking at each other.
They could be potentially walking or a short little stroll to the downtown mall. I mean, it's
the one that sits up there by Giant.
Right behind.
It's genius.
Yeah. No, it will.
I mean, the man is a genius.
It will get built.
Certainly knows how to play the game.
It'll get built.
A lot of people frustrated about this. Gentlemen, 11:30 here. We want to offer some more clarity here with some final thoughts. Taylor should come back.
Oh yeah, please.
Recurring guest.
Happy to. Very happy to.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Taylor, some thoughts for the viewers
Taylor,
and
we
listeners.
just need to let them. They should dress up a little bit more, right? I think maybe they should.
I think you look fine.
I'm just a dumb redneck.
No, I knew you were going to
teasing.
say that.
I'm teasing.
I knew you were going to say that. You look sharp, Scott.
I was just thinking, were you working for us in 04? Where were you in 04?
No, I would have been. I think in.
You were in the Corps at the time, weren't you?
No, definitely in the Guard. I think it was back from Cuba and.
Maybe hanging out at Orbit.
Definitely hanging out with Orbit. Big shout out, James.
James Watson.
James Watson.
What
up? The brother-in-law of the distinguished gentleman over here.
If I grow up and become half the human he is, I'll be doing something.
James Watson, you getting some props over here?
People. I did want to. Brzezinski wanted me to make sure that you look like a distinguished Ron Burgundy.
Ron Burgundy.
Do you know who that is?
Yeah, I know who Rod Burgundy is, right? And I'm trying to figure out how I can play that. Actually, one of my favorite movies. I enjoy that.
That's what the reason that we don't have a teleprompter for you is because you would read anything on the.
Well, no, you assume I can read, so that's the difference there.
We got to get Taylor in the mix here.
Yeah. Final thoughts?
Please.
Don't panic. There's not a need for panic. I think everybody associates the most recent inputs they have. If this were 2018, yes, the interest rates are higher, but right now the market's kind of reflecting the way it was back then. Other than that, make sure that you're working with somebody who can help you make the right business decision and quality of life decision, and can help you figure out which one of those two is most important at your position right now.
There you go. Well said, Taylor. Taylor's excellent. Scotty Moe.
Gonna ring the same bell, and something that I've been referring to over and over again. If you are a professional out there right now and you are struggling, then you're not seeing enough people. Go see more people. Go do your job. There is the same actions that people took. Deaths, divorce, babies, job changes, those things are going to continue to happen. And a lot of the people who, if they've been in for 4 or 5 years and looking to move up, that's where your most opportunity is. That's where they've seen the most amount of appreciation. They're in a good place. And if you know somebody who's starting to complain or say that they're facing some struggles, get them involved with someone while we can still help save the struggle. Burying your head in the sand is not a solution. And nothing is ever as good as it seems, and nothing is ever as bad as it seems. Just if you focus on your business, your personal growth, you're going to get through this and anything else just fine.
Well said, Scott.
Very
well said.
Don't be a secret agent. It's funny, we're going to get stickers for everybody in our team, in our office, for the back of their laptops. Ask me about the real estate market. I'm going to slap it on there and get out and have a cup of coffee and talk to people. That's how we're going to do this. Trusted advisor, I've been saying it all along, been saying it for years. Always use a trusted advisor on that end of it. So, Taylor, thank you. As Scott said, you're always welcome back, and we'll go ahead and work you in at any way we can into a show on the end of it. something for the folks that are watching and listening. You know, Jerry and I are going to be kind of moving the show in a little bit of a different direction on it. We kind of want feedback from folks that are listening and watching. Give me some specific examples about, I'm a seller, I need a little bit of help. And we'll kind of pick it apart, give some advice. Same thing on the buyer side. I'm a buyer. Sure. You know, tell me about this, and we're going to try to take some deep dives into specific situations that offer a little bit of help and to folks going forward. But thank you, gentlemen. This has been a fun show, man.
Absolutely.
I personally, in the near future, November, December, I'm going to start doing some very focused VA education classes for realtors. Personal, I want, you know, let's get together, lunch, the whole thing. Don't care what brokerage you're with, where you come from, who you are. You want to sit down, learn about producing a great offer with the product and how it benefits the veterans themselves. Talk about that, and I'm also going to be doing some returning to in-person first.
So this is a VA product? Did you say veterans?
Veterans.
Yeah, cool.
That's going to be strictly agent focused.
Cool.
And then some home buyer seminars with some builders. That'll be in Culpeper, but I'd like to be focused on Charlottesville and kind of like a first-time home buyer in-person thing.
Well, as veterans, thank you.
Thank you.
Katie Pearl, Keller Williams' finest, says, Scott, that was fantastic life advice that you just closed with, and I concur, Katie. Love when you watch the show, KP. That's the show. This is Real Talk with Keith Smith. You can find all the shows archived online at realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. I'll give it to you again, realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. The I Love CVille show is up in 54 minutes. Today we have David Toscano, former Charlottesville mayor and a multi-time delegate here in the Commonwealth. He's got a couple of books out, and he's going to give us the nitty-gritty of government in Richmond and Charlottesville as it pertains to inner workings, relationships, economic development, real estate development, and so much more. It's going to be an interview you don't want to miss. Judah Wickower, Keith Smith, Scott Morris, Taylor Averitte. I'm Jerry Miller. Real Talk with Keith Smith, presented by Ross Mortgage. So long, everybody. Well done, gentlemen. Tell us when the mics are on.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.